myself and a deck of cards. Now here is some of the most inside information you will ever hear, and that is if you ever run into a card cheater, you probably won't know that it is a card cheater. But there are those little telltale signs. Show you what I mean. For example, let's see if I was a card cheater. I would be sitting, enjoying the evening, relaxing, giving the cards a shuffle. I would probably even deal the cards from time to time. Now that's what I call a thorough shuffle. By the way, just so you know, that's called a dovetail or a riffle shuffle. But as I mentioned, what you have to be careful of, and of course, watch for the guy who's a little bit sloppy like that too. What you have to be careful of, and here's the telltale sign, the guy who squares the cards with his thumbs like this. You see, if you see that, realize that the cards have never been shuffled. You notice these are all the red ones, and these are all the black ones. You see, the cards are never shuffled, even though it looks very thoroughly as though they have been shuffled. There are many other ways of shuffling cards. You'll see some people shuffle cards like this. My grandmother and grandfather used to shuffle cards like this, and if you ever spend any time in the retirement communities of Florida, where a lot of retired people are, some of us have been to Florida, not me though, but they will shuffle cards like that. That's called an overhand shuffle. But while the cards are in the hand, you have to be careful, because sometimes you'll see the thumb hit it like that, or they'll just rest the cards and give it a squaring. And it's weird because you see the cards never, ever really get mixed. Now, I suspect, because I have noticed a couple of other telltale signs in the both of you, that one of you might be actually a card cheater. There's a possibility. Here, let's do this. I'm going to shuffle the cards like this. Try to make them about as pretty well shuffled as I can get them. And if you would, just go ahead and square up the cards. Just like that. I didn't see any telltale sign. How about you? How about you? Just indulge me if you would. Just give them the little, yep. See, I knew she was the one. Because you see, if you look at these cards very closely, you can see not a one out of place. Black and red. Please use your powers for good if you don't mind. Okay? The Gambler's Thumbs. This fine card mystery was taught to me by the famous card magician Jack McMillan. You may have seen his name in print many times. Here's what happens. You begin by separating the pack into red and black order. So the two halves of the pack are separated. Of course, your audience does not know this. So, you are already ahead of the game. You begin by using a zero shuffle. And in this case, by doing the zero shuffle casually, you're going to riffle up into the upper half of the pack, which is all, of course, one color. That pack goes to the right. You can see the difference in size here. You now shuffle these cards together, allowing cards to fall from the left hand first. And now you are going to zero these cards in, at least under the top 1, 2, or 3 cards. As you push these cards forward, they then zero in. So it does not change the order of these. Make sure, of course, you look in the details section of our DVD on the zero shuffle. But these cards are zeroed in, and you do this casually 2 or 3 times as you're shuffling the cards, as you are pattering about the fact that you need to watch out for the professional card players. The audience gets the feeling that you were just casually shuffling the cards. Now you tell them, of course, and this is phase 1, be sure you're careful to watch for the gentleman who squares the deck with his thumbs, because that man is a card cheater. Now at this point you spread the cards out. When the audience sees this red-black separation, of course this will sink into them greatly, and they will realize the cards were never even shuffled somehow in some extraordinary manner because of some extraordinary skill. The cards just seem to never mix, and that's what you tell them. The cards never mix. the gambler has complete control over the cards. That's phase one. You now continue with an overhand shuffle. And here is how you do an overhand shuffle that looks legitimate, but the cards stay separated. Remember, right about the center point is exactly where the two red and black packets are separate. So I begin by just overhand shuffling with my thumb hitting groups of cards coming off, little by little, groups at a time. Now, as you approach that center section of the pack, you are now going to continue shuffling singly, drawing off cards. And once you know you are past that center section, you continue giving the cards a more sloppy fashion to the shuffle. Of course, you would do it at a brisk pace. You can now throw in a fake cut, and this is a nice one. You cut 1, 2, and 3, the packs, and now you scoop them up 1, 2, and 3. Let me show you that again. You see the packets don't even get mixed. You just cut. And you scoop them up. You say, I've given them a shuffle. Some people shuffle the cards overhand, and then they always cut the pack. You scoop it up, and you say, now be careful though, and watch closely, because they'll still give it away because their thumbs will come in and square. Now, this idea with the thumbs is a charming little aspect that will give your audience a smile as you do this part of your patter. You now turn the cards face up. You can either spread them between your hands or ribbon spread them once again and show that the colors are, of course, separate. You note to the audience, look, the cards never really get mixed. The skill of the gambler. You now are approaching phase 3. You square these cards up, and of course you look at a spectator, and as you're talking to them, you say, you know, you look like a fairly unassuming sort. You have a good poker face. You were probably actually a card player. Of course, if you were a card cheater, you would never admit it at all, because you want to keep that a secret. Let's see. So now as I'm saying those words, what I'm going to do is lift up just about a quarter of the pack with my left thumb. I now draw out the middle half of the pack. Remember, in this middle half of the pack is where the red and black actually separate. I'm now going to hold a break with my left thumb between these two groups. One pack will be all red and one pack will be all black. As I now begin to shuffle, I am going to start with the left hand and allow a few cards to fall from the right. You can see now where the center section is on this half. I allow that to shuffle in, and now I continue together like this. You can see the cards are pretty well mixed. If I turn them face up and spread, you can see the actual state of affairs. Here's where they separate in the middle, and that's where the two colors, of course, go back together. This part of it you will take a considerable amount more practice to do, because you are doing it under the cover of talking to your audience and doing the moves at the same time. So you will be pattering and doing this. Remember, lift up about a quarter of the pack, draw out the middle half to the right, hold the break. Now as you shuffle off, you act as though you're doing your best to really mix those cards. You now push the cards forward and ask your audience to go ahead and square those up. Now, usually it's very funny because the audience will, as they begin to square them, especially if you ask a lady to do this, the women seem to be usually less inhibited when it comes to adding a touch to a presentation. So I like to ask a lady to help me. She will then usually square these cards, and if they throw in their thumbs, it's perfect. If they don't, and just let's say they square them like this, you now go, aha, look, I think I saw a little extra something there. Sometimes the thumbs give away for maybe just the fingertips. I think you are a card cheater. In fact, by squaring those cards, I don't think the cards ever actually even mixed, even while they were in your hands. You now get ready for the final revelation, where you spread the cards out on the table, showing once again the colors have never mixed. All red and all black. This is the final climax to this great mystery, the Gambler's Thumbs.